Just what we need, more smut to deal with as we're trying to protect our kids from the garbage that's out there. Here's the latest. This Calvin Klein billboard right there front and center for your kids to see. Shirtless guys, half-naked girl. You see his hand there. Clearly plenty of love to go around in this threesome. Almost a foursome. There you got the guy waiting in the bullpen on the floor. It's posted front and center on a building in the streets of New York City. So I'm walking down the street with my family. I'm going to have to explain that one to my sons. What's a threesome, Dad? Wow. Call in, 1-877-TEL-HLN. We'll take your calls on this, and let's bring in the experts. We welcome back Debbie Wolff, founder of People Against Censorship. Debbie, good to have you back. I'm sure we'll disagree again. Also with us, Barbara Lippert, an ad critic for Adweek magazine. She's been covering this topic since earlier Calvin Klein commercials were pulled back in 95. Let's start to get everybody's reaction to the ad. Again, we'll get calls in and just have the conversation. First, mine, I just think it's sickening. I think it's gross. When you look, the girl herself looks young. On a couple of fronts. Number one, how are you going to explain that one to your kids if you're walking around in New York and you got to deal with that? And I just think it's a bad message for our young girls. I mean, you look at her. She's a piece of meat. She's kissing one guy. Another guy's got his hands, as you see there. Another guy's waiting on the floor. I think it's just awful. Barbara, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the thing about walking around in New York is that not that many people will see it on Lafayette Street. It's stories like this where it's on TV and then it'll get on the internet where it'll really go viral. And that's exactly what Calvin Klein wants. He's purposely making it provocative so people will be shocked and outraged and call for it to be brought down. And in that time, he'll get hundreds of millions of dollars of free publicity for a billboard that costs maybe $30,000 otherwise.
I'm right. I'm convicted. You're right on that front. Debbie, let's get your take real quick, then probably take a break, then get calls in. You're all for it, right, Debbie?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Well, first of all, we all have different sensibilities in what we find offensive and what we don't. Second of all, I don't see the woman as a piece of meat or as an object. I see her as the person in power in the image altogether. And third of all, as far as walking down the street in New York, if you're walking down the street in New York, you're assaulted by all sorts of things all the time. People living their lives are things that you're going to have to explain to your kids.
The thing that I don't
see her as the person in power, but go ahead, Barbara, I'll let you dive in.
Well, the thing that I don't like about it is, he's pulled this out of his playbook over and over. He sort of owned group sex in the mid-90s. Let him move on to something new. I guess his brand is the orgy, and it just feels very 20th century.
There you go, the orgy. That's the way we're selling jeans now, with the orgy. Call in, 1-877-TEL-HLN.
VP now at Facebook.com/CNN.
Welcome back to Prime News on HLN. Continuing our discussion, please dive in on Calvin Klein's latest ad. It's a raunchy one. Selling jeans via the orgy. There it is. It's you can view it streets of New York City. It's a large billboard there. Here's Calvin Klein's somewhat of a statement on this from a Calvin Klein spokesman saying the intention was to create a very sexy campaign that speaks to our targeted demographic. Really? Come on. Take some calls. Kelly in Florida. Hey, Kelly, your thoughts? Kelly?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Your thoughts on this ad?
Yeah, hi. I'm very concerned about the message that this billboard sends to young girls. We should be more concerned about protecting young girls and showing them they don't need threesomes or boys groping them to have worth. I'm fed up with Calvin Klein and their smutty ads, and from today on, I'm not buying Calvin Klein anything anymore.
There you go. Kelly, I'm with you. A nice call on that. How about Martin in Michigan? Martin, what do you think? Martin? One more time. Martin in Michigan. All right, let's hit another phone call. Linda in California? Linda?
Yes.
Hey,
right
Linda.
Here.
Go ahead. Your thoughts here?
I am guilty of being an older woman, but I've watched Calvin Klein for years and totally agree with the lady who was on screen with you. I'm also a former protective services worker, and this really does frighten me. I'm sorry that it just looks like it gives them more ideas. Oh, here's a new way. But the other thing is that he makes trillions of money on these things, and we're giving him the ads free.
Yeah.
He does something shocking. It hits all the media. I'm glad you obscured it. I'm sorry you showed it. But they're no fools. His marketing people are no fools.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. I'm convicted somewhat, but we like to call it out here, and hopefully the people in New York City will rise up, especially those with kids. Devin, let me ask you, the first caller talked about young girls. Don't you think this is a bad message for young girls and when we talk about self-worth issues?
Mike, what's happening to us that we're afraid of ideas? What kind of message are we sending that we're afraid that an image on a billboard is something that we can't handle just by having a conversation with our kids? I'm not expecting our girls to learn from these billboards. They should be learning from us. And if you don't agree with the message in that billboard, then you have the opportunity to explain that to your children.
Mike?
Well, I'm certainly, my youngest is not ready. And then that's if this is on MTV late night, we're probably not having this discussion, but this is a billboard front and center, and you got toddling kids running around. How are you going to explain that to them, Debbie? You got a thought there?
Mike, when you say your kids aren't ready, I remember when I was a little girl coming into the city. I grew up in New Jersey with my parents. We walked down 42nd Street from Port Authority, and there were all kinds of things that maybe I wasn't ready to see yet. But that's just living life. Now, if you want to sanitize and shelter your family, stay home, but don't expect the rest of the world to sanitize itself to your standards. What happens when someone with more puritanical standards than you wants to tell you what you can talk about on the
I don't think mine are that. I think I'm right down the middle. I know it's New York City. You're going to see some things everywhere you go and on TV. But this is front and center, a billboard that little ones aren't ready to see. And I do agree with the caller that this is a bad message for our young girls, that they're worth more than being part of some threesome or foursome in this ad. There's got to be a more classy way to sell jeans. I know he likes to push the envelope, but come on.
Went down the street in Soho and into a woman with 3 men walking down the street and having it indicated.
Well, I'm not walking where you're walking, Debbie. What's coming up? Stay with us.